Hello everyone. This week we are going to be working with the elements of art and creating our own organizers to be able to use as we grow as artists. Our goals today are I can explain what line is in art as well as how to create a visual example of it. I can explain what texture is in art as well as create a visual example of it. And I can start to explain what the elements of art are and why they are important to know. Our vocabulary today is elements of art, line, texture, pressure, and pattern. The elements of art are the pieces we use that we're able to pick out of every piece of art created. There are a total of 7, and they include line, texture, color, value, shape, form, and space. Today we are focusing on line and texture. Line can be explained as any length that connects at least 2 points. If we took this straight line, for example, the line itself is the length between where it starts and where it ends. Notice how I said at least 2 points. That is because not all lines are straight and connected directly from one point to another. Some lines are wavy and curve between many points. Some lines are sharp and zigzag between many points. Some lines curve around and around like a spiral. Some lines can go up and down, which is known as vertical, or side to side, which is known as horizontal. They can even be diagonal, which means they are slanted, similar to a hill. Texture can be explained as something you see and how you think it would feel if you could touch it. There are 6 main textures we're going to talk about: soft, hard, smooth, rough, bumpy, and fuzzy. Soft can be used to talk about textures like fabric, like a really comfy shirt, or even flower petals. Soft is usually something that can even squish in your hands. Hard is used to describe something that doesn't really change when you touch it, like a rock, for example. You could squeeze that rock, but the texture stays hard and solid. When thinking about smoothness, you can think of a glass or even a mirror. The object that has this texture is very shiny, and your hands can slide across it without any bumps in its path. Bumpy texture, on the other hand, has little bits sticking up as you go across it. There is a lot more to feel with a bumpy texture. A good example of bumpy would probably be the skin of a crocodile, how it has bumps going over it, or even the bumps on the top of a Lego brick. Rough texture would go well with bumpy because it would make a surface that feels uneven, like there are bumps or cracks or holes throughout it. A few examples of rough texture would be the ceiling or even a brick wall. Lastly, fuzzy texture is what you think of when you touch the fur on an animal or something like a cotton ball. It feels soft, but also very fluffy and very light. Some of these textures may even go together, like something can be soft as well as fuzzy, like a little baby bunny or something. Something could have bumps, and it also be really rough, like a crocodile. Or it could have bumps and have areas of it that are very smooth, like a Lego brick. Some objects can even switch between textures depending on what happens to them. If you make ice in your freezer, and you pop it out, it would be very smooth on the sides. But say that you dropped it a bunch and it started to get a lot of cracks in it, it would change the texture to more of a rough, bumpy texture as opposed to a nice smooth texture. We can show which texture we are trying to draw based on the way we use lines to show that texture. The more pressure or the harder we press down on our tools, the more rough, hard, or bumpy the object will appear. The less pressure we use, the softer or fuzzier the object will appear. This is also similar to how many marks we make. Just like with pressure, the more marks we make, the bumpier, harder, or rougher the object will look, and the less marks we make, we get more of a smooth, soft image to appear. To draw soft images, you need to keep your pressure very light, keep your shapes rounded as well. To draw hard images, make the shape appear more boxy and sharpen your corners, as well as press down harder with your materials to draw. For bumpy, the trick is to make little bumps around the outline of your shape. Mainly you want to avoid a smooth line, so zigzag and wavy lines are nice to create a bumpy look on an object. For smooth lines, you want to make your lines nice and straight. Avoid having lines and extra detail as much as possible. For rough texture, it's all about adding different lines into the object. You can have lines really close together, like in a pattern. You can even have them overlap each other. Having lines start and end at different spots can also make it look uneven and make it look like it has a rougher texture. Lastly, for fuzzy texture, the idea of dashed lines is a great one. Making many small dashes right next to each other going around your object will give the appearance of a very fuzzy textured object. This is all of the information for today. You can go to the next page in this folder for what you are doing for today's activity.